Welcome back to another edition of No Stoplights. Want to thank our sponsors, Micky Finn's, MPD Electric Co-op, Carolina Bank, and Pepsi of Florence. You know, it's a little bit personal with me. I'm thinking about the class of 2010. Micky gets elected governor. Tim gets elected congressman. I got elected lieutenant governor. I mean, I've kept relations with those people friendly and amicable, but it's not. I mean, I've talked to Tim a lot more than Micky. Micky went off and became ambassador to the United Nations. Tim got appointed senator. It's interesting how some of these dominoes fall. And at times I play out that. I mean, I play that out in my head in some of the windshield time. You know, I had someone tell me a couple of weeks back, when they see Tim and Micky and where they are, they wonder where I would have been. But you can't plow a straight road looking behind you. I mean, you honestly can't. Does my curiosity ever get, of course it does. I mean, absolutely it does. But it is interesting. I mean, Trey Gowdy was in the South Carolina class of 2010. I mean, there were just a lot of us, trying to make our way in the political world. And Trey ran against Bob Inglis, who had done something to, stir up the ire of the Republican base in Greenville. And Trey won that race. And then I'm thinking about Henry Brown in Charleston decided to retire, and Tumpy Campbell, Carol Campbell's son, decided to run for that seat. And Tim was actually in my race. I mean, I've said that before. Tim was a competitor of mine in the lieutenant governor's race, and Tim and I met. I mean, he'll substantiate this at a Starbucks at the Vista. It's closed now, but when I ride by there, I think about that meeting late one evening that Tim and I had and kind of hashed out our deal. Another story that I can kind of relate to about tonight is when Micky was running for governor, I'm running for lieutenant governor. I mean, my lead never waned. I mean, South Carolina's a +8 state, maybe +9, might be +10 by now, but I was up 10. I mean, I was up 10. Micky was losing ground. I mean, Vincent was catching her about a half point every third day. I mean, somewhere thereabout. I'm rounding off, but it was somewhere in that neighborhood. And I'll never forget our state GOP chairman called and said, hey, we got to circle the wagons around Micky because this thing's a lot closer than we need it to be. And we went on this tour, and that's where I met Mitt Romney. I'm just thinking about getting a call in 2012 from a friend of mine inquiring about, 2014. That would have been 14. That would have been 12. I think it would have been 12 about Chris Christie as a presidential candidate. And at the time, Christie in 12 would have been non-conventional, right? I mean, he'd taken on the teachers' unions in New Jersey, and this friend of mine who had gone to school with Chris Christie called me and inquired about, wonder what South Carolina's appetite is for Chris Christie. And at the time, I think it would have been a pretty good appetite because, once again, he was somewhat of a rebel. He had taken on some things in New Jersey that Republicans historically had not taken on, and how the world has changed. The winner in all of this, and I mean this sincerely, the winner in South Carolina has been clearly Henry McMaster. I mean, without question, Henry had run for governor and lost to Micky. Henry endorsed Donald Trump in the early days of the Trump campaign. That would have been maybe late 15.
And he was lieutenant governor.
He was lieutenant governor at the time. Henry gets elected lieutenant governor. Henry gets on the Trump train in 15, and I'm convinced the Quins probably gave Henry the advice to be a part of this because the Quins had told me in 2010 how much populism there was. And I was kind of a populist candidate, so my future looked bright. And, if I can't play that hand, I can't play either hand. In the world of neoconservatism, I'm probably a lost puppy. In the world of globalists, I'm probably not in my element. But in the world of populism, that's kind of my forte. I mean, that would have been my sweet spot, so to speak. But anyway, Henry decides to get on the Trump train. I would imagine, I don't know this to be true, Rev. I know how the game's played. Somebody from the Trump team, maybe Trump himself, reaches out to Henry and says, is there anything in particular we owe you? Is there anything you want? I mean, basically, is there a job you want? And Henry didn't have any interest in going to Washington, but Henry probably told the Trump team, find something for her to do. And if we can get her out of the governor's office, then, obviously I transition from lieutenant governor to governor. And that was a lot of the candidates that didn't want to run against. They would have liked to run against Henry as a sitting lieutenant governor because the history isn't that positive. But once you establish yourself as governor, it's hard to beat that incumbent. I mean, it would have been hard to beat Henry as an incumbent running for re-election as lieutenant governor, but running as a lieutenant governor for governor, I mean, the history doesn't. I mean, Bob Peeler comes to mind. Andre Bauer comes to mind in recent times. I would imagine there's some others prior to that, but in my recollections, Peeler loses to Sanford, Andre loses to Nicky. So, Henry's got to get a leg up. And once he got to be governor, without being elected governor, he was the prohibitive front runner in South Carolina to get reelected, and he spent 10 years as governor. I mean, when you think about it, his term limited, but Henry got appointed governor or got selected governor, I guess is what you would. When Nicky left the governor's office to become ambassador to the UN, Henry slides over in year 2 or 3. So he finished that term, got reelected when John Warren gave him a hotly contested battle, and then he won re-election, this past time. So he's going to spend 10 years as governor of South Carolina. So when you look at all the dominoes that failed in our state, I mean, obviously Tim won the lottery. I mean, he got appointed. He got out of the lieutenant governor's race. He won the congressional seat. Jim DeMint leaves the Senate to go run the Heritage Foundation. And I was told 2 years prior to that was going to happen. I mean, I was told 2 years prior to DeMint taking that job that Senator DeMint was not going to finish his term in the Senate. He was going to rather be a head of a think tank. I don't think they told me it was a Heritage Foundation, but they told me it was going to be a think tank. So Tim wins. I mean, no doubt about it. He wins the congressional seat, and then he gets appointed U.S. Senator. Probably, I would imagine, if you want to be a U.S. Senator or a governor, you'd probably want to be a U.S. Senator. I mean, I wouldn't, because I don't want to go to Washington. But if you're an aspiring and ambitious politician, other than president, U.S. Senate is top of the food chain. I mean, that's and I'll level with you. You want to put my business on the street that I normally wouldn't? Red's going, yeah, I do,
Yes.
really do. The reason I have been guarded about publicly endorsing or supporting Trump is my friendship to Tim. I mean, that's the only reason. I mean, I am 1,000% on board with America First. And I accept that Trump is the kind of the symbol of America First. But Tim's my friend. And, when I get a call from the Trump team about, being back on the steering committee or, if there's a thing we can do to work together and, is there a problem here? Some of us have decided to kind of take a pass. And I think the majority of us would say the reason I've taken a pass is, there may be some loyalty to Nicky. But there may be some South Carolina politicians who have chosen to take a pass on being Trump's team. Because when someone is that prohibitive a favorite, it doesn't make any sense to not be on the team. I'll give you an example. We broadcast in Sumter. Merrill Smith signed up to be on the Trump leadership team, and that's interesting to me. Merrill's got to play. I'm sure of that. We all have plays in some way, shape, or form. But, I probably will never. I'm being unbelievably candid and selfish when I say this. The odds are I'll never get myself in a situation where the president is available and could be helpful. I mean, I don't run Goldman Sachs. I don't run JP Morgan. I don't run the World Economic Forum. I mean, I'm never going to be in that situation, but I have an existing friendship with a U.S. Senator. And why would I not violate that friendship, but why would I offend that friendship? It doesn't make any sense. And you never know. One day something may come along in your world that you need a U.S. Senator to kind of help you nudge it along and help you get something done or not. It's kind of, it's the game of chess. It's politics. I'm not defending it. I'm not saying it's the way that it should be or I wish it were. But the reason I've been very guarded about being, associated with the Trump campaign is my friendship to Tim. And I think Tim's a good guy. And I think Tim is a competent guy. And, I don't think he's going to get elected president. And I hope he acquits himself well tonight on the debate stage when he, represents, in essence, South Carolina and diversity and inclusion and all these other sorts of things that Republicans have been so ambitious in addressing. It would be interesting if you asked all the politicians, former and current, why they've not endorsed Trump when they formerly did, how many would say Tim and how many would say Nikki? I mean, that would be an interesting dilemma or dynamic. It's not a dilemma. It would be more of a dynamic than anything. So, yeah, I mean, I'll watch tonight, and I'll watch, Nikki in particular because she's a former governor of our state, and I watched Tim in particular because he's a current senator of our state. And, Tim has a, do I know you, do I like you? Tim's likability is off the charts. I mean, he's his compelling life story, his authenticity or apparent authenticity, I think carries him a long way down the road. I think Nikki made a big mistake. I mean, I just think Nikki made a big mistake in trying to be both. And I'm talking about, I'm talking about I'm not talking about the water kind of washing it back and forth. And I'm kind of that. Nikki was solidly in the Trump camp when she got appointed, ambassador to the United Nations, but she wanted to keep a foot solidly in the neocon, interventionist, globalist, establishment Republican party, and I understand it. If you're not wealthy, you got to leave some options open. I mean, you just do, and you got to capitalize on that political fame that you've garnered. And I think Nikki always understood that the easiest road to follow politically is to stay firmly entrenched with America first. But there's not a lot of people over there paying a lot of money. The donor class, remember we talk about the asymmetrical relationship that the donor class has with its base, and that's kind of where we are. And Nikki tried to serve two masters, in my opinion. She tried to be 100% loyal to the donor class by basically planting her foot firmly in that establishment camp of, on globalism and interventionism and traditional Washington. I mean, traditional neoconservative Republican politics, but she kind of wanted to keep a foot firmly in the camp of the America Firsters. And I just don't think you could do both. I think that's the problem DeSantis is having today. I mean, is he fish or fowl? And that's complicated. I mean, you got to be a hell of a candidate and a hell of an office holder to thread that needle. I mean, you got to be generational. And, Vivek Ramaswamy has, in my opinion, the smartest thing Ramaswamy has done is been unapologetically America first. I mean, he's an anti-establishment Republican. I mean, there's no bones about it. We joke around and call him a heartthrob. I think there's a fair argument to be. Is he our Barack Obama? He's different, right? I mean, would you agree to that, Josh?
Yeah.
I mean, Ramaswamy is a different dude. I mean, we don't see many like Ramaswamy. Tim is an African-American, but Tim's pronouncements are fairly similar to, America First mainstream. If there's an America First mainstream, Tim kind of embodies that, symbolizes that. Ramaswamy is just, I mean, he's got a lot to say about a lot of things. And he doesn't shy away from controversy. He doesn't shy away from, every now and then the media will misrepresent something he says. He does a fabulous job of clearing that up. And I wonder at times, because we are a party, I mean, liberals fall in love. Conservatives fall in line. I mean, historically, that's been the nature of the beast. Republicans, we're a little bit enamored with Ramaswamy, but we know better than that. I mean, no, we'll get back to McCain. We'll get back to Romney. We'll get back to Dole. We'll get back to Bush. We're kind of we know our lesson. We know how long our leash is. We can toy around with the idea, but we don't do that. And Trump was the game changer. I mean, not only did we walk to the edge of the cliff, we jumped. I mean, we jumped and said, "Hey, I'm tired of the other. I'm trying this." I'm not defending it. I'm not condemning it. It's where we are as a party. But I think people find Ramaswamy so intriguing and refreshing because not only does he kind of believe in the virtues of America First, he adds an intellectual element that Trump does not. Now, that's not an insult to Trump. I mean, Trump's kind of a bull in the china shop. Trump is a political blunt instrument. Trump is unapologetically, not an intellect. I'm not saying he's dumb. I mean, I'm certainly not insisting or insinuating that he's dumb. I think, billionaires aren't stupid by and large, unless you win the lottery, and he didn't win the lottery. He kind of won the ovarian lottery, I guess, by his father doing well in real estate. But what I'm saying is, we as a party have to, what do we do with Vivek Ramaswamy? I mean, that's kind of where I am. What are we? How do we maximize his potential in the party, whether he's a nominee or not? I mean, obviously, he brings more people to the dance, correct? I mean, there's no question about that. I mean, a lot of young people are intrigued. I got 3 kids. I mean, they're all very intrigued by Ramaswamy. It doesn't mean they're on board, but they find it's a little bit like, remember when we talked a while back about Trump? Trump, I'm told, finds AOC interesting. I mean, I think she's bat crap crazy. I mean, there are very few people that say a million things politically that I agree or disagree with everything. AOC has never said anything that I agree with. I mean, I'll agree with Robert Kennedy at times. I'll agree with, I mean, in his better days, Joe Biden. I mean, I'm not some stern ideologue. I mean, but AOC has never said anything that I agree with. But we find her somewhat appealing. We find her interesting. I found Obama interesting. I mean, he never said a thing I agreed with, but I found his effect on politics was very interesting. And I think Ramaswamy has a similar effect. What is this guy going to say next? There's such an intrigue that human nature has with not knowing exactly what a guy is going to say next. And, what do we do with Ramaswamy? I mean, it's obvious what the Democrats did with Obama. I mean, we know what they did with Obama. They put him on a fast track to stardom and fame and fortune and wanted him to be, the leader of the party because he was so different and transformative and capable. I mean, let's be honest. He was a generational talent as a politician. Is Ramaswamy, there's a good question, is Ramaswamy a generational candidate in the waiting? I want to thank our sponsors. Carolina Bank serves communities throughout northeastern South Carolina, offering a wide range of services to meet every personal or business need, from straightforward accounts to complex finances. They're prepared to help you reach your financial goals. Carolina Bank, banking on tradition since 1936. Member FDIC. Pepsi of Florence represent the entire product line of PepsiCo, one of the world's leading food and beverage companies. Pepsi of Florence also serve brands from other great companies such as Dr. Pepper, Canada Dry, Lipton Tea, Gatorade, and various regional brands. Micky Finn's largest South Carolina liquor wholesaler, serving every county in the state, largest bourbon selection statewide. They ship wines to 43 states, opening soon a new beverage warehouse across from Buc-ee's on I-95 in Florence. They support USC athletics, including Williams-Brice and Colonial Life Arena. Marlboro MPD Electric Co-op. If you're in big business and looking for an industrial park in the South to build your new plant, consider Marlboro MPD Electric Co-op's new PD Commerce Center, an industrial park located at the I-95 exit in Florence, South Carolina. Check it out at MPDC Co-op or PDEC.com.